As EWTN's original news program, you have come to expect great guests from the world of politics and the media. And we brought you some of the biggest. Just after moving the show to Washington, D.C. in 2008, we landed an exclusive interview with then-President George W. Bush. The conversation made international headlines when I asked him whether he planned to boycott the Beijing Olympics due to China's abysmal human rights record. The president snapped back. You just said earlier, freedom is a gift from the Almighty.
Yeah.
Considering the human rights record of that regime, how can you in good conscience go to that ceremony, Mr. President?
Because I'm going to the Olympics for starters. And my plans hadn't changed. And the reason why is because I can talk to them about religious freedom prior to the Olympics, during the Olympics, and after the Olympics, and which I have done. I don't need the Olympics to express my position to the Chinese leadership on freedom. I just don't need them, because that's all I have been doing as your president. In other words, for people say, well, you need to express yourself clearly about freedom of religion. My answer is, what do you think I've been doing? And
well, Angela Merkel boycotted it.
I don't think she boycotted it necessarily.
Well, she's not attending the opening ceremonies, it appears.
She's not attending the games, period. She's not going to, I don't think she's going to Beijing at all. That's at least that's what she told me. But, look, I hear all this rhetoric. I want to be an effective president. And I don't think it, as I say, I'm going to Beijing. And we're talking about the Chinese people as well. And the question is, does the American president take decisions that'll enable the next president to be effective or not? Because I've made my case. These Chinese leaders know exactly my position. I've talked about freedom of religion every time I visited with them. I've talked about Darfur. I've talked about Burma. I've talked about the Dalai Lama. As a matter of fact, I'm the only president to ever stand up in public with the Dalai Lama here in the United States. So they know my position. And my question that I think about is, if I politicize the Olympic Games, will that make it less effective for me to deal with them or more effective? And but nobody needs to tell George Bush that he needs to bring religious freedom to the doorstep of the Chinese.
Mr. President, final question.
Yes, sir.
You said famously, when you looked into Vladimir Putin's eyes, you saw his soul.
Yeah.
When you look into Benedict XVI's eyes, what do you see?
God.
Good way to end the interview.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir. My pleasure. In one of my favorite interviews, I sat down with Supreme Court Justice Clarence Thomas to discuss his long and difficult road to the Supreme Court. When the vote finally happens after this brutal hearing and rehearing and coming back and testifying again and the charges, you tell your wife when the final vote is coming down in the Senate, I'm going to take a bath. You're in the bathtub when the final vote comes. She runs in and tells you you've been confirmed. You say what?
Whoop-de-damn-do. That's what I said.
Did it sap the joy of the triumph?
I never had any joy. I was never really interested. Oh, no. I don't suggest that in the book. This was never any goal of mine. The President of the United States asks you to do something. What are you supposed to say? Yes, Mr. President. But my point to you is simply this, that there was no victory. I wasn't winning. This was not a contest. This wasn't about being on the court. That was not of great interest to me. But what was of interest to me is not to give in to bad people who were attacking. Now, they would like to say, well, we were just disagreeing. When you try to destroy someone, that is not about disagreeing. That is about destroying a person. You and I can disagree, and we can debate each other. But if I were to pick up a club and start beating you, that is not about a disagreement.
No, you're bigger than me, so
I'm trying to harm you. So it's
kill
quite
me.
different, yeah.
Do you feel God is calling you to this position, to be President of the United States?
You know, I don't believe that God gets heavily involved in politics. So I believe that God's work is to save souls and bring them to return to Him. At the same time, I believe that the interests of saving souls is associated as well with freedom. That freedom allows religion to bloom and grow, and that people draw closer to God by drawing closer to their respective faiths. So I don't pretend to have a religious mandate.
You're actually much more of a traditionalist. As I read this, I thought, here's a guy he's willing to change his life to preserve his culture. He's somebody who understands the beauty of that culture and family.
Well, you know, most people describe themselves as fiscal conservatives and socially liberal. I describe myself as economically liberal and socially traditionalist. Now, I do have, there's some issues that would not be considered so traditional on. But I do, and I've written a book about this, I think that the preferable way for a child to grow up is with two parents. And you know, I know it's not always possible, but I think that's a preferable way. You know, ideally, you know, if people say, what's the advice for a successful life? You know, get married, stay married, go to school, stay in school. Okay, now, that doesn't mean that we need to look down or anything else of non-traditional families, which is certainly the way. But I would prefer, all things being equal, I would prefer that my children would grow up like that. But that's just my own personal view, if you will. And I got married once. I've been married once in my life. I got married when I was 49. So I tell people,
waiting for the right one.
That's it.
And Mary, you come away, as I read this, you come away, your appreciation of nature, your love of animals, all these things, these are not traditionally, you know, Cheney conservatism. It doesn't quite reek of that.
Cheney is a conservatism, but I do think I'm an ideologue, and I do think my Catholicism explained it to him and gave me language for it. It's subsidiarity, it's solidarity, it's so these philosophies all merge. But for the record, Dick Cheney is a conservationist. Conservation is a virtue. It's just not an energy plan.
You don't work for him anymore, Madeline. It's okay.
I love the
You're
man.
not on retainer anymore.
Man.
Tell me about the success of the show and the amazing success it has had over these 17 years. #1 in cable. I attribute it, looking in, to the way you choose your stories each night and the way you frame them. Many other shows, they seem to be repeating each other. Not this program.
Well, I think there's an authenticity to the factor that people know I'm not a phony. I mean, you like me, you don't like me, whatever. I'm not trying to pander to anybody. I think people know that. #2, I hang with regular folks. I mean, I'm not running with the swells, all right? So working class people are who I interact with on a daily basis. And I want to reflect their concerns every night. So when I see a story, I said, you know, are the folks interested in this story, or is it some pinhead thing they're doing like that? And I think my instincts are good. My mother still lives in the same house that I was raised in, Levittown. I try to move her out of there. She didn't want to go. I go back every Sunday to see her. I've talked with the folks. I know what their concerns are. So we reflect that on the program, and I think that working people and people steeped in Judeo-Christian tradition who believe that makes a country strong, I think they know that I'm with them. And so there's a loyalty there, and that kind of explains our success.
Then, just 2 weeks before the 2016 presidential election, I spoke with the soon-to-be President Donald Trump. The interview made lots of news. We discussed the new political movement he had started, and he cleared up one very important question. You have said this is a movement. You're the leader of a movement. Whether you win or lose, what are the issues that this party, the GOP, will have to contend with as part of that movement?
There are many issues. The biggest issue right now is the judges, Supreme Court judges, but Obamacare is a massive issue. The Republicans have to get rid of it. They've been unsuccessful in doing it. I will get rid of it, and I'll replace it with something much better and much less expensive for the people. Jobs have to stop leaving our country. Our military has to be rebuilt, and we need it's been very depleted. The military has to be rebuilt. We have to take care of our vets. We have to protect our Second Amendment, which is under siege, and we have to have strong borders. Right now, people are pouring into our country. Drugs are pouring into our country. We have to stop the people and the drugs.
And then there is this. In appearance after appearance, there is one bit of Trump syntax that has created debate in households across America.
But we have to also get back, and we have to solve it big league and strongly. Someday, I believe that will be proven out big league.
We are all suffering, and we're suffering big league.
We're going to win big league, believe me.
Okay, my final question. It is perhaps the most portentous. We've been seeing on social media, we've been seeing it in the New York Times, in USA Today.
Are you saying bigly or big league? And my guess is within, so there's money riding on this.
Well,
Bigly or big league?
now let me ask you, you're talking about for me?
When you're speaking on the podium and you say, this is,
I use big league.
I was
Good.
right.
Okay.
Big league, you've settled it.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you.